This episode of Bonfireside Chat is brought to you by Mike Verana.
You very kindly donated to our Patreon campaign.
Yeah, thanks, Mike.
Yeah.
We really appreciate it.
Mm-hmm.
Every little bit counts. And because of you and people like you, we are able to buy cool equipment and we're able to pay for the show because the show is free, but it's not, free to you guys, but not free to make.
Yep.
And we've been trying to make it sound better and doing cool stuff like the live show we got coming up for Watch Out for Fireballs. Yeah. But, if you don't listen to that, you should listen to that as well as this.
And there's stuff in it for you as well. So go check out those rewards. Pick a tier that works for you and the way you live your life financially. And we understand every little bit helps.
Yeah. And if you can't do it, thanks anyway.
Yeah, you're listening, and that is really
listening, cool. That's awesome. And all of you, anyone hearing this is by definition great.
Yeah.
So, keep shining on, you crazy diamonds.
Some of our landings were desperate adventures. We are now prepared to meet the inevitable counterattacks with power and with confidence.
Listen here. When do you think this all happened? Long ago, when this very land was called something else. We say Drangleic now, but countless kingdoms have risen and fallen on this very spot. And this won't be the last. Oh no. That damned hag just can't let her old flame go. She's going to get us all burned.
My name is Gary Butterfield.
My name is Kole Ross.
And my name is Jake Booth.
And you're listening to Bonfireside Chat. It is a cursed favorite.
And this week we are talking about the Harvest Valley and the Earthen Peak. The two great tastes that will make you die together. And as you heard, we are joined once again by Jake Booth, also known as Video Games Talking Head. Hey, Jake, welcome back.
Thanks for having me back. I'm surprised that I've managed to worm my way back in.
I was totally on board. And then, I've teased you a lot about your Twitter that will remain nameless.
Now I have another Twitter, purely for video games. No Gundam.
Yeah, the public Twitter.
Yes, the public Twitter. To hide my private life.
Yeah.
My shame.
You guys probably remember Jake. He does for my money, my favorite Demon Souls lore stuff on YouTube. He hasn't done one in quite a while.
Well, guess what I was doing right before this call? Oh, real spooky. You've got to have me on the show more often. That's the only time I do work.
Yeah, that preparation. So, you're saying that makes me sound like it's like somebody's gonna get ice cream. Like it's like telling a dog he's gonna get somebody wants a ride. Somebody can get a RIDE, get a TREAT.
I don't know if I'm comfortable being somebody's muse. You can do better, Jake.
Yeah. I am if it results in more videos. So yeah, Jake does great work on YouTube with that stuff. And he joined us for Demon Souls. At the time, when we were doing that season, Jake was the only person who I knew who was really doing that stuff. Mm-hmm. It's kind of gotten a little bit bigger now. But
a little bit bigger.
Yeah, but still not tons. So yeah, very happy to have you
that's
back.
Demon Souls in a nutshell.
Yeah.
A little bit bigger, but not tons.
Yep. Exactly. Yeah. So yeah, thanks for coming back.
Yeah.
Yep. More than happy to be back.
Cool.
Mm-hmm. What did we do last time, Cole?
Well, we squashed some spiders in Brightstone Cove, Seldora. I didn't mean to say squashes. That was a typo that I just read out loud. But we killed some of those spiders and we're like, hey, where's the poison at? So we go back to consult our friend the Skeleton Lords, and oh boy, do we find it.
So many poison areas in this game. It is a real poison. And then the DLC is just like more poison.
Yeah, I went to the DLC with the poison dagger. I was like, they can't possibly put in more poison after like Bright Skoko. Oh,
it's like 5 different people bringing like crackers to the potluck. They have the initial production design meeting. Like, okay, we've got the names for these places, and break. And they came back. Oh no, poison! You brought poison too.
I'll bring soda. Yeah, I can't wait to see the next area, which is toxic, and then the third DLC, which is toxic and poison.
Toxic and poison, and spoiler, they bring back plague.
Yeah,
don't give them ideas. Love of God.
That's an awesome idea for a boss, like a 3-headed dragon. One that's poison, one that's toxic, and one that's plague.
It's like, yeah, they're kind of different, but
Yeah, well, you need 3 different items to cure them in the DLC. The inventory management sim. But so we get here through the Huntsman's Copse, which makes sense because that has poison moths, and we have a good idea where they maybe came from. Because just beyond that copse, there's this mountainous desert region that is ruled over by Mytha, the Baneful Queen. And she lures undead and tricks them kind of into her thrall, forcing them to mine poison from outside her windmill tower and extracts the poison upwards into her chamber, which she uses to make herself quote unquote beautiful. But in fact, she is a Naga. And we know that she is in love with the king, but he does not love her back. And her hatred, envy, and further poison has twisted her into this monster. This snake lady.
Yeah. I love the lore of this area.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's pretty neat. Like, I like the idea of the story, and it kind of, not so much like this area so much as like Earthen Peak, because Harvest Valley is really like a hop, skip, and a jump.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But even aesthetically, like, I love that skyline that you walk out towards. Like, they're introducing this new color palette to it, and just it's kind of metal looking up at that crazy windmill.
Yeah, I've got a big thing for like having like an oppressive tower or something in the distance you can like see and work towards. Any game that has that is A-okay in my book.
Yeah,
I definitely enjoy that.
It's not quite like steampunk; it's more like stone and canvas punk. I don't know.
Windmill punk.
Yeah, windmill punk. There we go. It's breeze punk.
Yeah. Breeze punk. And the path up here is littered with skeletons.
Yep.
Including my favorite skeleton, which is the skeleton who has his ear up against the wall.
Who
died. Like, people, that's a really great place for soapstone messages. Like, a lot of like, listen carefully, therefore skeleton, and like listen carefully, therefore death. So I like that guy a lot.
And, skeleton ergo butt hole.
Yep.
If Dark Souls 2 did anything right, it's the messages.
I like the gestures too. Like, as far as unqualified wins, I'm giving it new game plus. Gestures and messages are unqualified wins.
Gestures,
and then several, gestures and gestures, yes, and and pickup games of gestures. Yeah. And then several qualified wins, but those things I think are awesome improvements. And there's a bonfire here, which you get to, which so this is something I thought of when I was replaying it for the show. We talked about how bonfire teleportation was potentially implemented a little bit later in the cycle. Another thing that supports that is this like trick ladder that, or like this half ladder that brings you here.
Yeah.
Because I had a moment, like when I fell off that ladder, I'm like, oh shit, I'm trapped over here. But you're not, because there's a bonfire and you're never trapped in Dark Souls 2. But like, I was like, so like, why even have those ladders if you're going to have teleporting bonfires?
Yeah.
Yeah. And like, I never thought of that, but like, you've also got the descent into the Saints, the Grave of Saints or whatever it is. Like, that is right. Like, that's probably, I never thought of it makes me,
because we talked about in the Huntsman's Copse episode the tree shortcut that was probably implemented before the teleporting bonfires, and that makes me think this branch was probably one of the first ones developed because it has so much evidence of that coming in later.
I like these weird retrofits.
Come here and I learned so much. It's only been 5 minutes.
But this bonfire, it's a real harsh introduction to what this area, this pair of areas is going to be about. Not only is it poison, but it is sticky liquid poison that keeps accumulating after you run through it.
Yeah, you don't want to roll through it.
No.
Like your poison accumulation will vary depending on how much of your body is covered with poison. Which is interesting. Like, if you roll through it, you're going to get poisoned very quickly.
Yeah, I definitely made that mistake, thinking, oh, it's just like the Valley of Defilement or whatever. I can just roll through it, and it's not a big deal.
Yeah. And interestingly, we'll talk about what happens with the poison here, but I just found this out running through it again because I was bonfire asceticing to do some of the stuff again and fight the bosses again, is that this poison pool is connected to all the other poison pools. So if you, once you do the trigger thing that we'll talk about later, this poison pool disappears.
Oh, really?
Which I was just kind of like, oh, huh. Yeah. This poison pool and then a poison pool later in the very beginning of Earthen Peak will disappear.
Yeah.
I was surprised to find.
Dark Souls 2 has definitely got a lot of like little things in it that like really make me impressed.
Mm-hmm.
Like that, like the disappearing poison, like even outside of the boss room.
Mm-hmm. And it would almost make more sense if it didn't have that teleporting. Like I'm fine with the teleporting bonfires. I'm not bagging on it, but some of the little things like that you find through backtracking, which you have less reason to do with the teleporting bonfires. So like the some of that stuff is definitely hidden. So on the plus side, like I'm still discovering new things as I play, which is crazy. But on the minus side, like a lot of them are gonna fly under people's radars.
Yeah, it's not a replacement for the world fitting together as neatly as it does in Dark Souls 1. In terms of it's not 1-to-1, in quality as far as I'm concerned. However, the limited scope that you have, the limited ability that you have to impact the world is rewarding in its way.
Yeah.
So you roll up on some soapstone signs that are referring to Great View, and they're either talking about the skyline or Cloan.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, it's a female NPC in Dark Souls 2, so you know what that means.
Yeah, woman, therefore liar. Why? Somebody hurt you bad, Dark Souls 2 player.
Yeah.
Like, you poor little pup. Quit being such a goddamn idiot.
Oh, man.
What an inappropriate medium to take out. I remember hearing 99 Problems for the first time and being like, man, somebody hurt Jay-Z bad. And like that seems like a more appropriate medium to take out your juvenile aggression than like a Dark Souls soapstone message. Like, just like what is a good way to express my grand views about an entire gender? Here we go.
Well, 2014, it's all about microcasting. You're not going to hit as many people, but you're going to hit somebody who's going to go, hell yeah, brother, high five.
Yeah. It is like soapstone messages are like the Twitter of the Dark Souls world.
Oh no, Dark Souls Twitter.
Yeah.
Don't even get me started on that, because I'm going to become addicted to that like I became addicted to regular Twitter. And then there'll never be a new episode.
well, now you just gave me the idea to, as things happen wherever I am in Dark Souls, just write it down the best I can. Like I don't know what the equivalent, like the Dark Souls equivalent of saying great sandwich is, but like, can we start this movement? Can we bring more noise to this signal?
Do like a tweet like play by play of Dark Souls 2 using, and like post on Twitter like just messages of like that you would write down on soapstone and just see if people can follow along. Like that's a brilliant idea.
Yeah.
Or vice versa. Like if there was a portable Dark Souls, like if it was like Dark Souls for Vita, just go about your day, live tweeting it, but just do it in the game. Like never leave a certain, throne room. Like you don't actually have to move in the game. You're just using soapstone messages to chronicle your adventures.
Or in a patch, they can just make it so that every time you leave a soapstone message, it automatically tweets for you. # Dark Souls 2, loving it.
I'm surprised that they haven't actually done that. Yeah. I'm glad they haven't done that.
Yeah, me too.
All joking aside. Let's talk about Cloan.
Yeah.
Real quick.
Mm-hmm. Yep. So she continues the thesis, or at least the trend that you see of people who come to Drangleic only to forget very important information about themselves. She is a stone vendor, and she's here because of the mine situation, and just she's made this kind of cottage industry about of selling upgrade materials to adventurers who are coming and going.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and we find out if you exhaust her dialogue, she goes back to Majula. She is the daughter of Lenegrast, even though, they never reunite or anything like that, which is dumb. And they never make any reference to it. But she's super useful. Like, it is a good reason to go down this spoke as soon as you can, just because having her there, even just having somebody who can sell you an additional 10 large Titanite shards can make a big difference. And then she gets better as the game goes on.
Yeah.
Eventually selling unlimited chunks.
Fire aesthetics and stuff.
Yeah.
That's such a huge missed opportunity for tragedy too, because if they could have made it incredibly one way, like Lenegrast says, "Oh, my daughter's back," and then she says, "This old man thinks he's my dad. What the hell?" Yep. And so it's sad both ways. Either he's obsessed with his daughter who went off and died because she wouldn't settle down, or she just forgets her daddy.
Right. And that they could almost have done that super subtly, except that I think they do make some kind of reference, or do they? Maybe they don't. Maybe they never say anything about it. So maybe the idea is they've both forgotten.
Oh.
Like Leningrass knows he has a daughter, but he doesn't realize this is her because he doesn't remember the finer details.
Yeah.
Like, I think that there need to be a little bit more connecting that dot if that was the idea.
Yeah.
And that is a cool idea, but I don't know if that's necessarily what they're going for.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you pass her by, and there's a big, huge trench of poison mist. And you're introduced to one of the, cooler visual looking enemies. Visual looking, not visual sounding enemies, the Mounted Overseer, which these guys aren't, great shakes gameplay wise, but they look really cool.
Yeah. I really like their, just like the whole theme of the enemy, like they're shooting dark magic and stuff, and like the guy who's like perched on top of them, so he's not in the like poison cloud. It's very cool.
Yep. And you think about like, we know that this poison, prolonged exposure has kind of monsterizing effects. So it makes you wonder if these things were kind of raised in the poison.
Pleasing taste, some monsterism.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, sweet. They were raised in the mist, and then and that's why they're these brutes. Pretty neat idea.
Whereas the overseers themselves, they just adopted the mist.
Yeah. And well,
tell me about Mytha. Why does she wear the mask?
The thing about these guys, gameplay wise, is that they shoot these incredibly powerful dark orbs, but they have no vertical tracking. So like they just can't shoot up. They never got to that lesson.
Yeah, which is
slave school.
It feels like they should have tested that out to me.
Yeah, well, like they put it. There's that part later in the level where like you're elevated above them, like when you're heading into the Earthen Peak itself, right? And it's like, did they not test this? Like anyone would just shoot them with an arrow or something. Like,
well, they even give you 10 hexing urns at that point because they want you to. I think these guys might be a little bit too hard if they could shoot up at you.
Yeah,
so they'd have to like scale down the damage a little bit because I've only been one shot by those things.
Yeah,
I've never tanked one of the hits from them.
Yeah, incredibly difficult. Do they have close range attacks? I've actually never tried to engage them on their own level.
Yes.
Okay.
I'm pretty sure that they do. It might just be I'm always too close to them, so they maybe their orb attack actually counts as a close range attack. There's a part later where you have to trick one into doing a thing. So, and breaking down a wall.
Yeah.
And a little bit later in this section. So that's where he's close range attacked. But I was so close that I didn't get I didn't have like a good view of it, so I don't know exactly what it is.
Yeah. I love the design of these guys. They kind of have the rags over their faces a little bit. By which I mean the big guys. The little guys I think have masks on as well. Yeah.
That's to cover up their neck seam where their heads have fallen off, which is the ultimate effect of the poison. You stay alive, but your head falls off. Like the Might Be Giant song.
Yeah. There's some stuff's kind of scattered around in the mist here, and you're going to want to take these guys out just because they will wreck your shit if you don't. However, there's not really much of use like laying out visible. Most of it's off inside these caves. It's just this was where I got really acquainted with the Fated Souls. It's kind of like as schmuck bait.
Yeah, and sometimes they're next to good stuff.
Yeah.
So. Most importantly, there's this little cave here where you can find a fire seed, divine blessing, a raw stone, a fragrant branch of yore, which is awesome, and then also the Gavlin relocates here. If you talk to him at the Doors of Pharos.
Yeah.
So, or you need to talk to him here rather to make him go to Doors of Pharos. This is his second location.
Yeah, it's kind of backward for this. He went here first, but then he had to go to the Doors of Pharos because Gavlin heal.
Yeah. Yep. That's where Gavlin lives. That's Gavlin home. But yeah, I was so happy when I saw him show up a second time because I could have swore I thought he was just gone.
Yeah,
like I had one chance to sell shit, and not the case.
Wouldn't put it past them.
Yep.
Yeah. But this whole thing leads into a pretty tough spot that I had some trouble with. Did you, Jake, taking these guys out before you get into the mines proper?
Yeah, I remember like spending a lot of time in the valley. I guess I'm just not very good at this game, but they do so much damage that it's sort of like I just ended up getting one shot no matter what.
Yeah.
Well.
In this box canyon, they give you access to a sniper spot, which puts you above. However, I tended to get ganged up on by these prisoners up here.
The Lemmies.
Yeah. Lemmies because of their sideburns?
Well, they look like Lemmy.
Lemmy,
like Lemmy the Rock Man, the rock and roll guy, or like Riff Raff from Rocky Horror, as mentioned before.
Which I think is I think that is your go-to visual reference for any person. You might have face blindness, except
no, they totally like. I will put one together.
Okay,
I will do one of those combo JPEGs because they look like Riff Raff. They're all balding with stringy long hair, and they're all gaunt, and they sing really well.
Maybe Riff Raff did the mocap for like half the enemies in this game.
It's fading souls. Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know. Yeah, like really, these guys are just about it. It's like the only real trick, the only new enemies that this introduces are these guys, and then those Hammer Brothers a little bit later.
Yeah. Hammer Bros. Well, there's also the Mushroom Men, or the Beetles.
Oh yeah,
A little bit later too.
Didn't we see a couple of those down in the gutter? Around the crazy healing.
Oh, around the spider, yeah. But yeah, you get through this area, and you get into another tough area. This area with the pits and the towers. Which, like, this area isn't too bad, but it's kind of got like a nice gimmick where you can go into these pits, and you have to run blind, because the thing we didn't talk about this fog is that it occludes your vision quite a bit. So usually there'll be items or soapstone things to kind of guide you and get some items and get out, but you're going to get poisoned. And the super Dark Souls 2 pro tip, and most people already know this, but rather than carrying around like 1,000 poison mosses, just eat 2 healing crystals anytime you get poisoned, and you'll be fine. And I almost always have 99 of those anyway, because whenever I have leftover souls from leveling up, I just buy as many as I can. And you can get through all poison that way.
Yeah. Another pro tip specifically for dealing with this area, it doesn't make any sense. Once you're poisoned, poison doesn't accumulate. So you don't just want to like pop your healing mosses as you're going around. Wait till you're out and then use those to get your poison accumulation down.
Yep.
Yeah. If you take them while you're inside the mist, it's worthless. Yeah.
But there's just kind of some items down there, and then the kind of the two features of this area is, one, there's like a little puzzle place where there's one of the undead overseers guarding a place where they have to bash open a wall to get behind it. There's a wooden wall, and you have to trick them into smashing it down. And you get some decent treasure back there. I think that's where the old halberd is.
And I think like the old shield as well.
Yeah, the old knight shield.
They have like the kind of like main design on them. They're kind of cool.
Yeah, they look nice.
Although it took me like an hour to get him to smash it down. I'm really bad with anything in that game that's like, oh, get the enemy to do something for you.
Yeah. It's also because the camera isn't your friend when you're doing that either, because they're so big. It's really hard to focus on them and see their moves that are being telegraphed.
Yeah.
When they're that close to you.
It's such tight quarters too. I've never trusted myself to get around it effectively to trick him into doing that.
Yeah, what I ended up doing was just not targeting him and then like standing in front of it and like just rolling in between, like I guess adjacent to the wall that I need to break down, and then like eventually it would work. So that's my Dark Souls 2 pro tip.
Eventually it works.
Shoot the door until it dies.
All it takes is pressure and time.
Yep. Yeah. But then this ambush spot.
Holy shit.
This is one of the harder like set pieces of the game, I think.
Yeah, I thought this was mandatory the first time I played through.
Well, I guess Vadi made a reference to it and said that in the or maybe EMB, in when he did this area in his Let's Play or whatever, he said that in the original version of this was 1,000 times harder. Like there were way more of them, and it was, like there was twice as many artificial undead.
Yeah. Well, we should say what it is. It's another one of those one way hallways that because you can't step over anything that's above knee level, and inside it's like this kind of like honeycombed area, honeycomb big, and it's filled with artificial undead, which are incredibly resilient. Also, they attack quite quickly because they dual wield, and there are 4 of them.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, I found this part of the level really, really challenging. I ended up having to like kite them up to like the top of it, then jump down, and like one of them would jump down, and they'd like don't immediately start attacking, take a hit, like run back up.
Yeah,
it's
very tough with melee. Like with my Hexcaster, it was not too bad.
Yeah.
But with anytime I've done like a melee build, I have to spend a lot of time kind of kiting these guys around. Yeah. I've also done like a real like Benny Hill, like run around, get all the treasure without just being chased by all these buxom shirtless artificial undead, and that works too. You can do that.
Yeah, like I think that this is really hard because they never really advertise that alluring skulls are a thing.
Yeah,
those can buy you some time.
Well, I didn't think they worked on artificial undead. I feel like I tried that last time I was here, and it didn't work on these guys.
It worked for me, although that might just be like confirmation bias, or it could have been a fluke. Yeah. Well, I mean, just like that and Yearn. I think I think I used Yearn, actually,
and it might be Yearn might work, whereas the alluring scroll might not. Because I'm pretty sure I did the alluring skull yesterday.
Okay.
And it didn't work. But I could be wrong before anybody like takes up pitchforks. But like I could be wrong about that, but I'm pretty sure that I did.
And I could be concatenating both alluring skull and Yearn. So yeah.
You guys are way more like strategic than I am. I just hit stuff with a big stick. Whatever.
Well, that's my inclination. It's just once after I beat Dark Souls 2 and I was going through and doing cleanup on the Executioner's Chariot, which I was just banging my head against, and Gary said something like, "Oh, just use alluring skulls." I'm like, oh, okay. Boo! All of a sudden, like every situation that requires crowd control, I just immediately jump to that. When. It just every hammers and skulls and nails. I put it together. You have the parts. Yeah.
I'll have to try that myself.
Yeah.
It's a good item.
Will I become a convert?
Yeah. The alluring skulls for that fight, even though we're not talking about that area, almost become necessary in New Game Plus. Mm-hmm. Like my DLC character, I'm trying to outfit him with good equipment just so I can, since the last DLC was so challenging. And I wanted to get the Chloranthy Ring +2. So I went to the Executioner's Chariot, and it's so much harder. Just because the stamina damage that the skeletons do. Like it's just very easy to break through your shield while you're guarding in the alcoves. So.
Can we take a moment and talk about how disappointing it is that skeletons don't really show up anywhere else?
I'm trying to think.
I mean, Huntsman's Copse and then here.
Rest in peace, skeleton.
Yeah, you might be right.
Yeah. Like you would think that the crypt would be lousy with them, but it's really not.
Yeah, just lemmies.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, all of the things inside the crypt have skeletons inside them.
I mean, cool. If we're going to broaden.
Yeah. So the game is full of skeletons. Yeah. Everything is full of skeletons.
If you're not careful, the one inside of you will break free.
Yep. Every time you smile, it's looking out on the world and surveying all it sees.
Yeah. Watching and waiting.
Ugh.
Sorry, I pooped us.
Some of the loot you get in this area is actually pretty good. Yeah. Especially you get quite a few spices, which like I haven't done a build, but that's a real viable build thing because there's some buffs that don't scale with your stat, but you need kind of high stat requirements to use. So I guess I haven't done it, but I've read online that that's actually a pretty viable thing.
Yeah.
Kind of spice your way down into some stats or some buffs.
I could see that specifically if you're looking for a particular soul level. Like there's some, sorceries or hexes that require just like maybe 4 more points than I'm willing to invest in intelligence. Yeah. So that would be pretty cool. It's really just for spells that have different intelligence and faith requirements, right? Just to lower those.
Yeah.
Or if you're a dummy like me and don't have any intelligence points at all, you can finally use those magic spells you've been waiting for.
It's wonderful for spells that don't have that have a binary effect, like things like light or like repair.
Yeah,
it's super useful for. Just because it doesn't matter how smart I am, as long as I can cast it, it does its job. So you can go through that. And one thing we should note is this area and all these pits are totally optional. Like this is all just side adventure bait. Like you can literally just go from the bonfire, which we didn't mention, after the door and the box canyon, and just go immediately to the next valley.
Yeah,
to be full poison.
Also, strangely enough, only one pit in this area, I believe, and it's not even under poison, is bottomless. Like you think,
Oh, yeah.
okay, this area filled with poison is going to just be full of instant death drops. Not the case.
Yeah, mercifully.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's the one next to the fragrant branch, right?
Yep.
Yeah. Okay.
And and there's a crystal lizard there too near that one that is difficult to get without a ranged weapon and tries to tempt you into jumping into a pit.
I don't think I've gotten any of the crystal lizards in this game. They're placed just so terribly for melee.
Yeah, they're really hard to get. Yeah, without like a bow. Like a bow will make it okay. No bow, make it no okay.
Drops aside, there is one last trench that you go to, and this is where we get formally acquainted with the hammer guys. You know, those hammer guys.
Yeah.
They've got a pleasing. Or I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Oh, sorry. I'm just making dumb Super Nintendo jokes.
Oh.
No one gets those.
Super Nintendo's hot right now. It might be better that whatever you were going to say, because I was going to say they have a hilarious and pleasing torso shape. Like I like how they look like Tor Johnsons, like just greasy, chubby bald guys. Torres Johnson.
Yeah. Well, at least those other ones get to break through the wall. If these guys tried, they wouldn't be able to.
I was just trying to think, do they?
What deep cuts?
Right, no, they do. It's my completely worthless observation.
These guys,
yes, that was correct.
They can wreck you up real good, and you pretty much exclusively fight them on narrow walkways, at least here. So if you're not directly taking out the undead overseers in this area, they can't really hit you. However, if you fall off, you are in for some pain.
Yeah, there's three of them down there, and it's full of poison. It's pretty much pain.
Yeah,
and the Hammer Burrow guys as well. Like, I think that's the only time in the game I've encountered the shockwaves phenomenon, where it's like, no, I didn't get hit by that.
Yeah, what is that? The knights in the Royal Forest and the DLC of the first game had the shockwaves as well with their attack. Like it's interesting. It doesn't come up a lot, but it is definitely there.
Is that just where the hitbox is bigger than it looks like their geometry would? You know,
there's a visual effect too.
Okay,
it's not just like bad hitboxing, which does happen in Dark Souls too. But this is like a white kind of aura around where they hit.
And these are one of the handful of enemies that will prime an attack and then chase after you. The old knights and I think a couple of the Gurm, depending on which weapon they are, will just comically run after you with their weapons primed.
Which I'm glad they put in. Like, if you're gonna have a big hammer enemy, if it doesn't run after you with its big hammer behind it, it's not really a hammer enemy.
And then
they're too predictable if they don't do that. Like you just it raised its hammer, I'm gonna dodge, and then this one runs after you instead.
Yeah,
you know, so it works pretty well. It's similar to the knights that fall backwards. Like it's countering evasion mechanics from Dark Souls 1.
It just puts you immediately on the defensive in ways that you don't automatically go towards with other enemies.
Luckily, these guys have very little poise.
Yeah,
which as a man of carriage, I can say is true of most men with my torso and these guys' torso. So you can stun lock them if you have any kind of decent weapon fairly easily. There's a little there's this kind of area inside with some poison pots that go before we go into Earthen Peak proper, but we can also make a little side journey to the left and go down and get some fan service.
Yeah, I missed. So this you're talking about the eroded statue that gets you into the heirs of the Sun Covenant. I missed this on my first playthrough. People were talking about where it was, and I never found it.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I managed to find this. Like, I was very happy about it. Stumbling upon something like that, it's a special feeling, you know.
Yeah.
It's something so fan servicey.
Yeah, I think that's that's more or less what I think it is there for. But it is really pleasant, and like Dark Souls, like memes are memes and memes suck, but Dark Souls is great, and Dark Souls memes are therefore a little bit better than regular memes. So I can handle some praise the sun memes from time to time, and this area is full of them, and I can get into that.
Yeah. Yeah, so like the statue doesn't even really stick out that much at all. And I like how this alludes to the passage of time, just the idea that there's this very dim remaining ember of what used to be the Church of the Land, and people who are kind of still carrying this out. Yeah, yeah. There's what is it? The Sun Sword. Where do you get that?
You get that as a Covenant reward.
Okay, yeah.
From this Covenant, I haven't spent any time in this Covenant really, but I've been helped out by many a Sunbro.
Yeah. Yeah,
Thanks,
I went to it by default just because I have, just on my character right now, I wanted to go after just do the boss fights a little bit more, learn their patterns a bit, and co-oping is a great way to do that with no consequence. So I made myself into an Heir of the Sun just because, might as well gain something for it.
Yeah, nothing wrong with that.
Yeah.
But so there's no boss to this area. There kind of is, but it's really, for some reason, it's the precipice of the next area.
Yeah.
Or the entryway. But we get into Earthen Peak proper, we get the title card, and we're inside this kind of, rocky structure that's past those pits we passed up. And it's kind of interesting. There's two ways to get in. The way on the right, which goes down this like poison pit, and there's a path that's hidden under it.
Yeah.
You can head down and grab a Estus Flash Shard, and if you wanted to, you can trade a Pharaoh's Lockstone for a Poison Bite Ring, which not a bad move in this area.
You could have used it a bit earlier.
It's a little late.
Yeah,
kind of after the fact.
Well, depending on and how this boss goes for you.
Oh yeah.
Like spoilers, like I fought this boss without the secret the first time, and used that Poison Bite Ring and every single Radiant Life Gem in the game to get through that. So,
oh wow, just a big old room full of these poison horn beetles there as well. I really the design on these guys upsets me.
Yeah,
both kind of the mushroom type form that they have, the fact that it appears to be some kind of malignant growth and it's covered in holes, and that they're almost always encountered together. It makes more sense for them to be here than where you find them elsewhere, or especially later on, just because there's some question about whether or not they were made poison by the environment, which I believe to be the case, or if they happen to come from here and spread it around.
Well, different ones have different elemental affinities, I think.
Yeah.
I think the ones you find in Shrine of Amana do corrosion.
Yes.
Again, don't crucify me if I'm wrong, Internet, but I think that's true. I fought one of them and had my second dragon ring break out of nowhere. And these ones are definitely poison. But I was talking with Jake a little bit before we got on in the green room, so to speak. And one of the most frustrating things about being a Dark Souls 2 lorester is that enemy placement thing. Like, it makes it hard to draw connections where enemies, and that comes up in a big bad way a little bit later in this area, but why certain enemies are in certain areas. Mm-hmm. It feels gamey as opposed to lending itself to the lore. Yeah. And these guys make perfect sense being here, but when they show up later, it's my instinct is to try to figure out why they're here. Mm-hmm. And I don't think there might not be an answer for that, and that's a little bit unsatisfying.
Yeah, because of the way Dark Souls 1 and Demon Souls to a certain extent, trained us to assume that there's intentionality. I think we're drawing a lot of false positives.
Yeah, I think so too.
Yeah.
And when people complain about the lore of Dark Souls 2, which is possibly not as strong as Dark Souls 1 or Demon Souls, this is a big thing of what they're picking up on. Mm-hmm. It is good in its own right. It is interesting. There are interesting stories being told. It's just on the whole not as cohesive.
Right.
So it becomes a little frustrating to me when people are just well, fuck this whole thing. No, it's actually, if you look at for what it is, it's great. It's just not as great.
Well, we can't. I think as well, even though that's definitely a thing, especially earlier in the level, that sort of area where you drop down and get ambushed, that's so video gamey, and it's why are there so many people just hanging around here just to trap you, obviously. But in a lot of ways, people said Demon Souls had crap lore compared to Dark Souls, and then obviously I proved them wrong, right? But there's definitely some interesting stuff in Dark Souls 2.
Yeah.
Just enemy placement is not one of them.
I think it's a trap that video game fans, fall into, and I only say that because that's the community that I know, which is they think that if something isn't great for the same reasons as something that came before it, then it has to be inferior. Right? They want Dark Souls 2 to be great for the same reasons that Dark Souls 1 is. When in fact, I think that just would make it, more of the same thing. Right?
Yeah.
Like I would prefer that they find a new way to delight and surprise. Not just a new way, but just kind of like new avenues to to play against.
Yeah. I think so too. And I can appreciate a wide range of experiences. As a person, like there are things, I like all kinds of games. I understand that kind of disappointment, and some of the things definitely disappoint me, like the lack of the connected world and this enemy stuff, like is disappointing, but it's also, life's too short for that shit, man.
Yeah.
There's been somebody was on Twitter and it was like, I don't understand how anyone likes Dark Souls 2. And then someone was like, you should listen to Bonfireside Chat. And the guy was like, and it was just like, well, I don't know if we're doing necessarily a good job of arguing the case for Dark Souls 2. That's not really what we're trying to do, but it definitely, I don't know. I don't know where I was going with that. I don't relate to the idea of somebody getting so mad at this because it's not exactly what you expected. That seems crazy to me.
Yeah. And something this path, and I think Saldora did this to a great extent as well. Is there are a lot of like smaller, more personal stories in this game than in the previous one, right? The previous was talking about a pantheon of gods, whereas this is like a pantheon of very human rulers who are corrupted, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like that's an interesting point, and like I think it does both. Kind of like there is some big stories, and there are definitely small stories in Dark Souls 1, but the macro story, you're not dealing with, like you said, you're not dealing with gods. The gods in this game are actually so, tertiary as to be just names on that ring.
Yeah.
Like they get referenced, and there's a couple of them that are related to covenants, but they're not the point.
Yeah. It's just a place where all the surplus wise go to live.
Yeah. Yeah. Anywho, there's a rant. Let's talk about this vestibule before the next boss.
Yeah.
Oh, yes.
Poison pots.
Yeah.
Who sounds the Iron
best
Man.
part of the game.
What's that?
They're the best part of the game next to the other curse pots, really.
Second best pot.
Yeah.
Is this just Mytha's weekend store?
Yeah, I imagine she has to like store up for the winter like a squirrel.
Oh yeah.
Like if the poison doesn't flow in the winter, she just comes here and drinks.
Yeah.
Freezes
These guys. So there's some more Hammer Brothers and more beetles, and then there's that little leap to get to that second room, and that took me so many fucking tries.
This is the first time I've heard you can actually do it. I thought they were just like shitting with me.
Yeah. The trick is you don't want to leap, you just want to do a roll.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And it's like a neat little diversion. There's like some mid-level group down or some mid-level loot down there, and also I believe your first like actual arrow plate trap.
Yeah, I think so too.
Yeah.
And first time you're into mannequins.
Yeah.
Yep.
Mannequins and then mannequin 2.
Yep.
Yeah, man, these mannequins. There's a huge disparity between how kind of menacing they look. Like they cut a pretty strange silhouette, right? The fact that they're headless, that they've got these claws kind of extending out of their forearms, and they're kind of like hunched over. Like they look like Silent Hill villains, but they're just so easy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, yeah. They're hard on.
Maybe like some of it is like hyping us up from like the trailer where we are like, oh man, they're gonna be so menacing, but then it's like,
and they got that derpy mask.
Yeah.
If they're hard if you can't block. Like if you're doing shieldless, they can stun lock you really easily, and they attack very quickly.
Yeah, I could see that. Oh, and also you pretty much never encounter one alone.
Yeah.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. I like the lore behind these guys too. Mytha, she, when she was human and not bound to her poison pit, she traveled afar, and she actually brought back this weird act of like this art of puppet mancy, for lack of a better word. And these are just kind of like they're constructs. She built them, and then once she lost her head, she got so angry that she took off all of theirs as well.
Yeah, that's like one of the few things in Dark Souls 2 that's like really interested me is the lore with like the mannequins and Mytha, with like how it relates to the King Vendrick and the golems.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
because like it's this sort of she was pining after him, and like maybe as a result of that, like that's why she's learnt this not quite golem mancy, but sort of.
Yeah. One of the things that we're going to talk about, or I want to talk about in this episode when we talk about Mytha, and then a little bit in the next episode, is because of proximity, everybody assumes that the king that Mytha was attracted to was the old Iron King. Mm-hmm. But there's actually like a lot of different options. Dave Klein in his video has a little note where it might have been the Prince of Aken. Mm-hmm. And the Belfry Soul there, because princes do turn into kings at some point. And that has close proximity. And I didn't even think about that Vendrick connection, but that's really interesting because they do both have that, like that golem creation thing. Like there is definitely, I don't know what that connection is, but that's interesting. Yeah. The idea of her, because there are also connections between the old Iron King's kingdom and Vendrick's kingdom. Like the Alone Knights show up in Drangleic. Which again, we're probably finding false positives because of, enemy placement, things. But
so Gilligan, when you talk to him, like we'll talk about him later. But there's evidence that these kingdoms, Alon and whatever Mytha rolled over, actually predated Vendrick's rule and Drangleic proper. Like Drangleic now, as this great Roman Empire that spans this whole continent, subsumed a lot of like what these old principalities were, right?
I know he says it was a long time ago, but does he specifically say it was pre-Drangleic?
Yeah. He says it's called Drangleic now, but it used to be, I think he said 2 kingdoms. Like there are several allusions, especially in item descriptions and soul descriptions, to the 2 kingdoms.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So that to me rolls out Vendrick. However, I do enjoy the notion of like this kind of concurrent evolution that apparently all these places, once they get to a certain point on the tech tree and their rulers lose their mind enough, they just start developing artificial life. Yeah.
Let's talk about the covetous demon.
Yeah, I like the covetous demon fight because it's real easy. It's funny too, like it's a hilarious fight.
Yeah, he's a real goofball.
Yeah, he looks like the brother from Weird Science.
Oh, yeah.
Something like that.
I can see what they're going for as far as the challenge of this guy, because like the interesting thing about him is that he never moves in a straight line.
Right.
So when he's coming towards you, he kind of sidles, and because he can attack, horizontally or do this kind of jumping attack that tracks a little bit, you never really know exactly what angle he's coming, but he's so slow that it doesn't necessarily matter that much. But I can kind of see it. But he's just not too hard, which I think is fine. Like it's okay to have. He's like it's closer to a mini boss. Yeah. He's the first boss you run into in this area. So
it's like the Prowling Magus.
Yeah.
Yeah. It did sort of like throw me like a bit though coming off of the area because it's so difficult. Then I got to the covetous demon and I was like, oh, this is going to be after I beat him, I'm going to have to come to the next boss or something. But it's just sort of there.
Yeah.
He like sheds off all these fat and there's a skeleton underneath.
Yeah. Ooh, yeah. There's a boss that he looks like from Binding of Isaac. Yeah. There's a like Chub and then the skeleton version of Chub. It could be like that.
That's one of the nice things about the nonlinear structure of this, just by entropy and, probably a little bit of intentional design about which areas they're kind of guiding you to go to. Like, it's not just a straight up escalation, like there actually are just kind of like peaks and divots in the difficulty of bosses. You get these breathers that kind of like vary up the pace.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I'm into that. The lore behind this guy is pretty interesting. He was a person who was super in love with Mytha, and it was unrequited because unrequited love is the theme of this area, and had some monsterism and became this hungry monster, who just exists to eat. And he expressed his desire. He eats his feelings, which like many of us.
He's the gaping dragon.
Yeah. Yep.
Dark Souls is taking a bit of like a cues and talking about their player base a bit, I think.
Yep.
I miss the interconnected world.
Yep. Give me past the gamer grub.
Yeah. Fatality barbecue.
Yeah. But he has a couple of awesome attacks. I think it's on Whipfest. I think it's on video. He ate me, and I love it because you think that you're going to be dead, but he just unequips all of your armor with his tongue, which I imagine being like tying a cherry stem in a knot with your tongue. Like he does it in bars to impress other covetous demons. Like, Mytha, I can take off all this guy's armor with my tongue. Impressed?
Folding an origami crane out of a starburst wrapper.
Yeah. But I finished him by punching him afterwards because you don't, it's essentially game over when that happens unless he's pretty close to dead, or you can take him with your fist because it's very hard to, re-equip armor in game.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Yeah, I love that animation. Just
yeah, yep. He loves to eat. He loves to snack.
Yeah, but he has a disorder because he does also have a vomiting attack. I'm not making light of bulimia. That was literally just the most crass segue I could take. I am so sorry.
Yeah, my friend Austin and I used to make up superheroes when we were young, and he made a cleaning based superhero, and I made his sidekick, which is the Bleach Bulimic. And it was originally the Bleach Behemoth, but then I turned him into the Bleach Bulimic because I was 12 and that was my sense of humor.
Yeah.
And he was just a big anthropomorphic bottle of bleach that just puked bleach on things, which would burn. Anywho,
what a horrible existence.
Like, oh, my stomach. But his snacking, you can take advantage of his urge to snack as well, because he has these jars hanging from pits that have these lummies in them, and so he's being fed, like he is being kept.
Yeah.
I think you've got it in the notes as a pet, which I like.
Mm-hmm.
That's what, and she's exactly vain enough to do that.
Yeah.
But if you break one of these pots, he will ignore you and just snack.
Yeah. You take less damage, or he takes less damage while he's doing that, but it does give you that break, which I could see that being like a very tense situation if he eats all of your equipment off, but you manage to put in like equip something that can shoot those out, and that gives you just enough time to re-equip everything else. It's a long shot, but that fictional situation I just made up is real cool, isn't it, guys?
Well, maybe that's what they were going for in the fight.
Oh, yeah.
If you break all of them, you will have enough time to kill him, because he will just go from guy to guy.
Oh, wow.
Like he does not, he snacks indiscriminately.
Yeah, it's more of a fan of jerky than fresh meat.
Yeah. Yeah. There's also, so after you beat him, there's a little stairway that curves up. I can't tell you how much time I spent trying to jump up that stairway.
Yeah.
And then last time I was there, someone put a soapstone message that was "Give it up, fatty," which whenever there's like a jumpable thing, that's my favorite soapstone message. Like, there's tons of those in the DLC. Like, you can't do this.
If they really wanted to be dicks, they would just put a developer soapstone like on top of it.
Yeah. Like, listen, we can't tell you why this was here. It doesn't matter.
Yeah. But this is pretty cool. And then I actually believe that the Earthen Peak should have started after this guy. I don't know why he's in it. Like, just my need to compartmentalize and segment things off. Just I'm really bugged by the fact that you're dipping in and out of Earthen Peak to do this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
Oh, and the bone scythe you get for trading in his soul is his spine.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which is the super metal. Like, you're using body parts as weapons in this game constantly.
Badass. It's like tail weapons.
Yep.
Rest in peace, tail weapons.
It's a replacement. Spine weapons.
Spine weapons. This week's episode of Bonfireside Chat is brought to you by our Patreon campaign and everybody who has kindly donated to it.
Indeed. You can go to patreon.com/Duckfeed.tv and check out all of the rewards, all the cool things you get. And I feel like they're substantive.
Mm-hmm.
Substantial. There's, some of it's cool physical stuff. Some of it is just getting the shows early. One of the coolest things, I think, is you can participate in our live streams. Mm-hmm. We do once a month, which are really fun.
Yeah.
And highly recommended. And it's been concrete reward. So the show sounds better, and we have a new show, Duckfeed Live, which is those live streams. But if you want to participate at the time and get them earlier, And then after I say I'm rubbing my fingers together.
Yeah. So we will put that in the enhanced AAC version of this that we put out.
Can you hear that?
Yeah. Yeah, there we go. I'll boost it. Yeah, all right.
The finger thing means the taxes.
The juice.
Yeah. Gotta get the juice, Loosh.
Yeah.
Wheeze the juice.
Yep.
At patreon.com/duckfeedjuice.
Additionally, go to duckfeed.tv/tipjar, and if you're buying stuff on Amazon, use those links. It's one extra step that doesn't cost you anything extra, but it does get us a kickback and goes a long way towards funding our efforts on the network. That works if you are in the United States, Great Britain, or the Canada area up there above us. America's hat, we say.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Indeed. So Kate Beaton, if you're listening and you want to donate, you can.
Once again, those Amazon links are at duckfeed.tv/tipjar, and select your region.
So you head up to the bonfire here, and Lucatiel's here. And by our count, this is our third meeting?
Believe so.
With her? Fourth meeting. Because Pirate Town, Lost Bastille, Gutter.
Yeah.
So this is our fourth meeting with her. It's our penultimate meeting with her.
Mm-hmm.
And she's still just kind of continuing to lose it.
Yeah. She forgets who you are.
Yeah.
And, that is underlined by the fact that she remembers you on the second one. She specifically calls out and says, hey, thanks for reaching out to me. Not a lot of people do because I'm a mask.
Yep.
Yeah.
And we've talked about Lucatiel a bit before. We'll talk about her ultimate end in a few episodes.
Yep.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So you head up. There's this little bridge where there's two poison pits on the right and left, which is a prime place for trolling soapstones. and you head on up to this little vestibule with mannequins and you haven't run Hammer Bros.
Yeah.
You haven't run into the Crypt Guardians yet.
Right. Yeah. The Crypt Guardians are directly guarding Mytha.
Yeah, well, some of them are. There's one at the end of this bridge too.
Was there? No, I think that he's just like a knight, isn't he? I don't. No, okay.
No, I think he's a mummy guy.
Okay.
Yeah, he's definitely a Crypt Guardian.
Okay.
And there's other ones before Mytha too.
Okay.
I like that idea, but I don't think it's supported.
Yeah. Yeah. So this whole area, it's similar to some previous ones in that it's kind of hard to describe linearly. Mm-hmm. Like there are little byways that segment off and then join back in at strange places. So if we don't address this in the particular order that you hit it, forgive us. I think we're probably going to take like a set piece by set piece routes of attack here.
Yeah, and the same thing will happen in the next episode.
Yeah,
with the Iron Keep because it's similar.
Mm-hmm.
In that respect.
Yeah, but this is where it really starts living into being like a very light, let's say, diet or zero version of Sens. There's a like this, and the comparison is drawn, and it's really disappointing because there isn't, a very direct analog to Sens in this game, and that's upsetting to a certain degree. But there is, machinery around, and there are, traps that don't appear very often outside of this. Good.
I think Iron Keep is a lot like Sens.
Is it?
Yeah. Like there are lots of traps, lots of flame, spike walls, and dropping platforms
the flame
and
guys. Yeah.
Flame bowls, and that's what I think of as the direct analog to Sens.
Okay.
In this game, it's not the same. It's not quite as good, and part of it is just that it's a little bit more. It's Sens with archers.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, so when I mourn the loss of Sens, I mourn the loss of kind of that area where it's incredibly tricky to run through. Combat is de-emphasized due to the traps, and once you make that, you will always make it, for forever and afterward because you've so thoroughly learned it. I think that is kind of the peak of game in Dark Souls.
Yeah, this is Iron Keep isn't that.
Right.
But they recalls a little bit of Sensness.
Yeah. So I should clarify my vocabulary. Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but you're going through here. You've got these narrow walkways and people taking pot shots at you after you fight that crypt keeper, and then you're looking out over the valley itself.
Yeah, which is awesome.
Yeah,
and it all actually exists there too. I think there's one of these areas you can actually drop down. I think it's a little bit later with Gilligan where you climb down, but you can actually drop down to the Harvest Valley.
Oh wow!
If you have enough fall control. I've seen it in somebody does parkour videos of you two, or Dark Souls 2 of you two. He does parkour videos of Bono, The Edge, Larry Mullen Jr., and other guy, and Adam Clayton.
The Wall.
Yeah. Yeah. But I think I've seen him do it before.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Wow. That kind of reminds me.
I really enjoy that overlooking part though. Like that sense of accomplishment is just, indescribable is how I'm going to put it, because I don't have the words in my vocabulary.
I mean, it's similar to other other times in Dark Souls 1, where you would look up to a place and say, that must just be scenery, and it turns out that it's not, even though it's pretty obvious when you're in Harvest Valley that the windmill is going to be your destination. Just because of the Disneyland effect. And so, but even still, like that idea of like persistence, it reminds me of when you die in Orlando, like over near the castle itself, and you respawn back, you can actually look out and see your glowing green bloodstain, just like from miles away. Like I like that, that persistence is here, even if it's in a very small measure.
Yeah.
If you head to your right, or I think you up and to the right, but eventually you run to the second bonfire, and we'll talk about this windmill thing, because I imagine that a lot of our comments are about this, and there's a contentious little bad boy here. So there's a windmill that you have to burn to get it. I don't think you get a prompt unless you have a torch on it, and the windmill does not look flammable.
The only thing
it looks like a big iron,
the only thing that looks flammable about it is that there is like pitch or lubricant around the joint. That's how it read to me. It's kind of like the same stuff that lets you light up the Sinner's Rise.
Oh yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. I don't think I've ever noticed that stuff, but I'll buy it.
Yeah, it's a mechanical moving part, so it's going to have some kind of lubricant, which would be flammable. However, that is crazy adventure game logic. Like that's like some fucking Myst shit.
Yeah.
Well, you can't only just do it with the torch. You can also rub the burning the butterflies on it. Like if you're just using the item menu.
Oh, really?
No.
Oh.
Okay.
No.
Crazy adventure game logic.
Can you? I wonder if you can use like a pyromancy on it.
No, you can't. I tried that. I was so disappointed.
Yeah, that's frustrating.
That was basically the point where I knew Dark Souls 2 was dead to me.
Gave up. Oh man, so it just sucks because you have no reason to have a torch out here.
Yeah,
like
if it was dark,
it's one of the most well-lit areas of the game.
Like make this area pitch black. Like literally close off that hallway. On your way here, and just make this like there's no source of light, so you have to get out a torch.
Yeah,
like that would have been a really cool way to do it, or at least to hint towards it. As is, like I didn't get it my first playthrough of the game. I powered through Mytha, and the only way I found out about it was because of soapstone messages.
Yeah,
I did not stumble on this on my own, which like, God help you if you did.
Yeah,
that actually puts a little bit of light on our. That puts a little bit of light on our supposition that this was one of the first areas developed, because if they put that hook into this area before they took out the lighting engine, that there might have been more of a reason in an earlier version of the game to be walking around with a torch and actually be able to see the prompt.
Yeah.
And that probably explains why unlike most other areas in the game, you can actually see like where you're going, more like Dark Souls.
Yeah.
We've proved that this was the first area designed in the game.
There is a lot of evidence.
And
I always feel good when we come up with something that I haven't read elsewhere on the show.
And there's also the idea, like if you were walking around, with a torch, if light was as much of a factor as we're led to believe it used to be, you would actually be like looking for stuff you could light, because it wouldn't just be the braziers or the sconces or whatever we decided that was. You might actually, like light thing on fire might be a verb that you would consider.
Yeah.
So it wouldn't just come out of nowhere or seem like this kind of weird Huntsman's Cops Bridge-esque thing. It would actually, it would follow. It wouldn't be a non sequitur that everybody talks about, in complainy ways.
Yeah, we solved it, guys.
High five. So, we did it.
We got it. Yep. Good job, us. As is though, it's some bullshit. And it really reflected what I thought of Mytha, since I didn't know this was a thing. And I'm not totally against poison Mytha, which we get to. Like, I think that actually makes that fight kind of crazy and awesome, but just way harder in an insane way.
Yeah.
But I was just like, oh, this is the hardest boss in the game. Like I'm fucked.
As opposed to just being like C+.
Yeah, it took me like 20 or 30 tries.
Jeez,
like it was so hard.
Yeah.
Well, because poison.
No, I'm not judging you. It's just
Yeah. And now that seems silly. Judge away, man. It was me being dumb for not trying to light everything on fire in the poison zone.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Anywho, like once you get over the rage of that, or you just know it because now it's just kind of collective knowledge.
Mm-hmm.
You had the next
even when I was playing, like I hadn't even like this was the the week the game came out, and I was still hearing like people complaining about the windmills. So I think it was ubiquitous from the moment the game came out.
Well, and if you go look at it now, like it is just lousy with soapstone signals. Like they might as well just draw like a yellow dotted line up to it.
And Sunbros will hang out by that bonfire.
Yeah.
Just to illustrate that.
Tour
like
guides.
People will do like community service.
Can Phantoms light the
No, they just try to lead people to it with their torch out.
With points.
Yeah, with points and pyromancy and stuff.
Yeah. But regardless, it's interesting that you can have an impact on the world up to and including have somebody build ladders for you.
Yeah. So you break off this railing, which I really like this, like getting to this guy, because it looks like something you maybe couldn't do, but you can. Mm-hmm. Getting out to this guy, and you run into Laddersmith Gilligan.
I remember like we were talking about the pit, and you just some kind of text conversation. I was like, oh yeah, you just got to get Gilligan to build you a ladder, and you were like, who?
Yeah,
you didn't. in your first playthrough, did you get Gilligan at all?
I did get Gilligan, but I hadn't been here yet.
Yeah.
I think this was the last spoke I explored.
Okay.
Maybe. Yeah. And also, I maybe didn't even ask him. Like, I might have had him, but didn't ask him to build me a ladder because I had the cat ring. I think you said something about a Gilligan ladder. And what I thought that was because of your Nick at Night proclivities, I thought it was a Gilligan's Island reference, and it was a ladder that is only halfway there and you fall off. It doesn't make any sense, but that's definitely, I was like, oh, it's one of Cole's Nick at Night things. There's some episode of Gilligan's Island I haven't seen. I'm not going to challenge him on it.
I love how just like everything with me is just diminished expectations.
Well, it's just, I didn't know that he made like that he would. I knew he made ladders, but I didn't know he made ladders there.
Yep.
Like it just.
Yeah. That's funny.
But anywho,
man. Yeah, he's real chatty. He is probably your only real source of lore in this episode, and one of the main sources of lore for this whole spoke.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Yeah, Pate and Lucatiel seem like they could just be anywhere else in the game, and it wouldn't really matter. But Gilligan's here to help us out.
And I believe that Lucatiel's dialogue is really just determined by how many times have you seen her before.
Yeah.
Mm.
She doesn't have anything specific to say about this area.
Right.
And Pete really makes no sense being here. But Gilligan. So he gives you that background. Some of the stuff we already talked about Mytha poisoning herself.
Mm-hmm.
And Lovey wed to a prince from a nearby castle who loved someone else, which is probably the Prince of Belfry Soul.
Mm-hmm.
And says the things we already said about it being a long time ago.
Yeah, for sure. And I like his voice actor. He kind of sounds like Shrek a little bit.
Donkey,
which is. But also, he's got a very anachronistic manner of talk. He says he comes from somewhere in the West, but he says, I should have listened to the warnings. This place is flippin' mental.
Yeah.
Which, it just sounds like they went down to some kind of like pub in Glasgow and just got somebody, like, just catch some ambient dialogue. Like, why are you saying that?
Yeah. He's also, we didn't mention this, but he is a fugitive.
Yes.
Like, he is fleeing the West. Mm-hmm. Somehow, and is kind of a shitheel in many ways. Like, at worst, takes advantage of people, but later you run into an NPC that implies worse about him.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and if you specifically when he goes back to Majula after you exhaust his dialogue, if you cheap out on him because he doesn't build ladders for free, he will just build one that will kill you. So
that does
he
not
also
always
sells
kill you.
the Thief's like set from Dark Souls 1.
Oh, that's
so,
true.
Like,
yeah,
underhanded.
Yeah.
Yeah, that ladder will not always kill you. That's HP dependent. Like I always thought that was like one that barely kept you alive. Because whenever I walk down the shitty $200 ladder,
regardless, he is trying to break your bones and ankles.
Yeah, he does. Yeah, he doesn't want you to walk away from it.
Right. So it's attempted murder by falling.
Yeah, exactly. It's manslaughter. You can get it commuted down to manslaughter. Manslaughter by ladder.
Yeah. Has there ever been an established use for the replica ladders that he sells?
Oh yeah. We'll talk about that later.
Will we?
Yeah, it has to do with a convoluted quest line that happens later in the game that I don't want to talk about yet, I guess.
Okay.
The first time I got the replica ladder, though, I was really hoping to be like some sort of thing that would make a ladder, like where you were. So I think the first time I tried jumping into the pit with it on, I'm like, okay, this will fucking work.
Ladder, go.
No,
Go
gadget ladder. But
whoa!
I think I just died horribly.
That's a straight up like D&D second edition item, like a little obsidian ladder that turns into a big ladder with a command word.
Yeah.
I guarantee that's like in second edition D&D.
Jake, I just had like a an Alfred Hitchcock like push pull moment where like I just astonished look on my face as the background gets really far away from me. We are two people on opposite ends of the world talking about the same thing, and we both just said go gadget ladder. You'll hear it in the actual episode, but I need to like lie down.
Just put that intermission music up again.
So yeah, he gives you the prostration. Gesture. Again, kind of goofy. I don't know what use there is for it aside from just
I always do it when I've been waiting for someone to help me for a long time.
Oh yeah.
Like if I'm in a tough area, like the optional boss in the DLC. Anytime I can summon somebody for that, I usually throw them a prostation because
we're not worthy.
It's surprisingly hard to summon for that.
Yeah. Maybe that's more of him, like being in trouble, begging for mercy, sort of.
Oh
like,
yeah.
Mm-hmm.
There you go.
It's Saul Goodman.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And the ladder he will give you, which costs 2,000 souls at this point, and for some reason I always have 2,000 souls exactly. Like the enemies leading from that bonfire that I happen to kill on the way here will give me 2,000 souls. It's really strange. But like if I start with 0 souls because I go spend all my souls at Majula at that bonfire from the Covetous Demon, I have that many souls. It just works out.
Game design.
Good design that. And you get a Pharaoh's Lockstone and a Twinkling Titanite, which depending on your weapon choice could be incredibly valuable at this point.
Yeah.
Yes.
It's worthwhile.
Yeah.
For sure. Yeah, going a little bit deeper into this into this area, there are a couple of set pieces that are going to mess you up. Specifically, anything involving the sorceresses.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, they are tricky.
Sexy.
Yeah,
sorceress.
I was grinding for like the sorceress's skirt, and I just ended up like getting killed every 5 seconds by how much damage they do.
Is that particularly good for pyromancies, or is that a fashion souls thing?
I want to see if it would fit on my male character, and if I could get that beefcake in the game, but
Yeah, their mask has a special effect. It's either like a plus to cast or plus 2 intelligence or something like that. So that their veil has a mechanical thing.
Yeah. I'm looking it up right now, so if you guys can go ahead. They're very difficult. They use Lingering Flame, which is a fantastic spell for manipulating the way people move around. And it's always...
And for killing me.
Yeah, it's a fantastic spell for killing Jake.
Specifically.
And man, they also have a pretty good chance of dropping Lingering Dragon Crest Rings +1.
Yeah, that's crazy, isn't it?
Which is a high, like it seems like a good treasure for a random drop. But yesterday when I was playing through, I got 2 of them. I was like, what am I going to do with these bad boys? Nothing.
Okay.
Yep.
Man, these wikis are so weird. They're I'll just bring 2 points. One of the points is the top enhances the chest size for female characters along with the singer's dress.
Oh, great.
Creepy.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Womp.
From soft.
And then the hood grants an additional 3 intelligence.
There we go.
Yeah.
3's not insignificant either.
No, that could be the difference between having a spell and not having a spell.
They're not just objects, okay? They have intelligence.
Yeah, exactly. Like, yeah, until eyes up here, guys. The thing about Dark Souls wikis that's funny is there's one that has more information and one that's easier to navigate, and you have to choose between that Fextra Life one that has more info, but it's so hard to look at and it's a nightmare on mobile.
That's what I'm.
Or the Wikidot one, which is so much more attractive but has less information on it.
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah, I was hoping that the Wikidot one would fill out more over time. Like the dialogue is really spotty. Like if you're just trying to find text of Laddersmith Gilligan's dialogue, you're not going to get it there. You're not going to get it anywhere. You just have to listen to 10 minutes of it on YouTube, like I did last night at 11 o'clock when I was writing these notes.
Are the wikis still filled with like people advertising their YouTube videos?
There is
that's really all I remember from like around release when I was using the wiki, and it's like, oh, don't bother reading the article. Check out my video where I showcase all of these in my Let's Play. And it's like, oh,
so I noticed that, but it's more of my general annoyance at the trend on the internet away from just like a bullet pointed list of how to do something. It's like, oh, here's a YouTube link. It's like, I don't want to hear you fucking mouth breathe over talking about how to do this. Like, I don't care if it's setting up audio equipment. I don't care if it's how to do something in a game. Write something out, because I can sure as hell read faster than you sputter it out.
Yeah.
Ugh. Sorry.
It's funny because the same. I agree with you. I'm just not quite as passionate about it. I totally agree. I mean, the reason why they do it is because you can get advertising money from YouTube.
Yeah.
But like it's funny because that's the same reason why I like text and RPGs as opposed to voice acting. Mm-hmm. Listen, villager, I can read much faster than you can fucking sputter it out.
Yeah.
Asshole.
Well,
Baldur's Gate over Dragon Age
least,
forever.
The videos aren't those videos on YouTube where like they'll put the notepad on screen and type out slowly for like dot points.
Fuck you.
Yeah,
assholes.
And like people on Twitter especially get it because they won't just post the text of something; they'll post a link to an image that they can get ad revenue off of.
Yeah. Money ruins the world.
God damn. Tragedy of the fucking commons.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Read on all accounts.
Donate to our Patreon.
I haven't seen the this Kiss of Death that the Desert Sorceresses do. I've never gotten that close to it.
That was the first thing that killed me when I was doing my replay, and I had a girl character this time, and I was like, oh, Fromsoft, you didn't really do this and make it like a female specific thing, did you? Because I never started my male character. I was really horrified for a minute.
I'm not mad. I'm just disappointed.
Yeah.
I've never seen that animation.
Yeah.
Because one of the cool things about these guys is when you run into two of them later, there's a little trick because they're next to poison pots. And if you smash the pots, they'll get poisoned and not know what did it. Like the pot next to them just bursts like a poltergeist and covers them in poison, and they'll just stand around until they die.
Why don't they turn into Nagas?
And you have to prolonged exposure.
Okay.
Turn into Nagas.
You have to titrate it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Huh. Mm-hmm. Yeah, but they work like D&D parties. They supplement whatever they're with, right?
Yeah,
they just complicate existing fights, and they put them in a couple of hard spots. Like there's that room with the spinning blades.
Yeah, I think that's part of the machinery for the windmill.
Yeah, they stop if you burn.
Yeah,
that you can get down there. I think there's like a pharaoh stone or something in there.
Yeah.
It's not particularly lucrative.
Yeah, it's in a real complicated treasure area where there's a lot of treasure that you don't particularly want.
Yeah.
And it's all tricky to get. There's like that rising platform thing, and if you manipulate that the correct way, you get the Mira shield, which is not great. And then that's also the hallway. I think the hallway with Pate. No, that's actually that's on the critical path.
Yeah.
There's like a lot of. I think it's that's the hallway that gets you the poison broadsword.
Yeah.
Maybe, which like you don't want that. Like it doesn't do enough damage and doesn't do enough poison. Like it's the worst of all worlds. Like, so.
Yeah. Yeah, and just like I think if you drop down there, you have to roll out through the poison pots to get back to anything that connects to anything else.
Yeah, or smash them with like heavy bolt.
Well, I mean, if you're trying to stay alive.
Yeah. Yeah. We'll get back on the critical path. We can talk about Pate. So he's here and he's hanging out in this little area. And again, he's just being a solid bro. Like, hey, I'm too much of a coward to go grab that treasure. It's there. Go get it, man. If you get it, you're a better man than I.
Yeah.
And you have to talk to him here if you want him to show up at the Seldora.
Yeah. And it's crazy because once you circle back with him, he's all about sending you into dangerous places and then rewarding you greatly when you come back. He just gives you all this shit.
Yeah. Yeah, like he's just like, I don't want this anymore.
It's like just...
I really want to see like the reaction of someone who hasn't played Dark Souls 1 and Demon Souls and like it doesn't get that like you're supposed to not trust fate. It's like, oh man, this guy's so nice. Why are people
he's
saying
he's the Solaire.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If he had a catchphrase, people would be maiming that. Like in a world where only Dark Souls 2 existed, whatever Pate says like would become the catchphrase.
Whatever horrible reality that would be.
Yeah. But it's a bunch of like mid-level stuff. Like even Great Heavy Soul Arrow isn't that useful. Like this is gear that you wouldn't turn down, or items and drops that you wouldn't turn down, but like they don't justify the amount of like gymnastics they make you roll through.
Yeah, like it's fun to seek out the treasure.
Oh, for sure.
Just in general, and like depending on where you come in the game, this stuff can be useful, but it was never for me really.
It's not about the journey; it's about there we go.
The journey.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's about the journey.
It's about playing Journey on PS3.
Yeah.
Yeah. Man, I forget like what takes you. I made these notes, but it was real late and I was real sleepy. I forget what actually gets you up into the poison area with the sorceresses and kind of that fountain that leads into Mytha's place.
It's just you keep going up.
Yeah, it's just a ladder, I think.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, and then eventually you go around a corner and that's the that's where they're at.
Yeah.
That area is interesting because the that fountain makes it, it's a clear signal that you haven't like, oh, I have to walk through all this mandatory poison. That's odd. And it's weird. The first time I went through here, even though I muscled through Mytha, I did find the hidden bonfire that's up here, which is cool and was a real godsend.
Yeah, it's incredibly useful, especially if you're going to be doing Mytha several times.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. That's a tough phantom as well.
Oh yeah, Crescent Sickle Phantom.
Yeah.
If you can't stun lock him, like he has very little poise, but if he gets shots off on you, he hits really hard.
Yeah. If you don't, if you're not able to get to open space before he catches you, then it's a real problem. Like he there's miles and miles of narrow spaces between you and where you can safely engage with them.
Yep.
Yeah.
And the little like side area here too is interesting, where you head back. Partly, you fight a bunch. There's a lot of poison jars and poison beetles and a mimic. But one of the things that's super interesting is there's a Pharaoh's Lockstone here that if you haven't drained the poison, just spits out poison. Yeah. If you have drained out the poison, spits out healing water.
Oh,
so again, just one of those little,
like
just one of those cool little details.
Yeah.
It's being corrupted by the poison. If you can clear that up, it's a good Lockstone.
That's weird. So like that was initially built as because this whole area has kind of like a shrine kind of kind of appearance to it. Like
a shrine, or like I kept thinking bathhouse.
Yeah, that's probably true.
Yeah.
Like either way, it's like a ritualistic place.
Yeah.
Yeah.
For sure.
So yeah, I could definitely see like this now heals her, so it might as well. Huh. Yeah. There is a nice little congruency there. That room with all the poison beetles and the jars, that feels Kingsfield as shit to me.
Yeah.
Yeah. And also, there's something that we didn't say about the mimics. So this is the second mimic that we've encountered, I think, in the area. The second live one. Their description in the strategy guide is metal as all hell, because apparently these were people who were cursed for their avarice. And this is like a tribe that has existed for millennia.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
It's like they pissed off the kid from the Twilight Zone.
they got
wished
into the drink.
Your head's a treasure chest now.
Yeah. And we were asking questions about the dark set. Pretty much the entire dark set is contained inside these mimics. Yeah. So they're they're flung to the far corners of the earth. Yeah. Neato.
Indeed.
Yeah, I really like how the mimics move in Dark Souls 2. Just as like an aside.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They're
really,
so
super
creepy. It's awesome.
Yeah. I forget, in it's been so long since I played Dark Souls 1. Did they do that bent over backward exorcist walk in Dark Souls 1?
No.
They sort of just like stand over you and look like weird.
Yeah. Be all tall and slender. Yeah.
They do this goofy kick.
Yeah.
This one, which I really like.
They're more like silly than intimidating in Dark Souls 1. Which, isn't necessarily a bad thing.
Right.
I like all my mimics. In fact, like if you put a mimic in a game, I'm into it.
Yeah.
Like, I like mimics.
Mm-hmm.
So
there's a pretty rousing thread in the Facebook page about that, actually.
Oh yeah.
About mimics in games.
Yeah.
Oh.
Go to our Facebook page.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you get to this. If you've drained the poison, one of the advantages is you're going to see the summon sign down here for like probably like the most powerful or like the most useful summon. I feel like, or like the summon that is most likely to be able to just kind of take a boss on his own.
Yeah, this is the Tarkus.
Yeah, I mean, other than like Benhart, who can probably take on the Prowling Magus on his own, but that's boss is super easy.
Yeah,
like this is a major boss, and you run into Jester Thomas, and Jester Thomas can take on Mytha more or less.
Yeah, at the very least on your first go through. I don't know about New Game Plus, but. Yeah, he's a pyromancer. Like he is like Xanthus King in that all he does is throw fireballs.
Yep.
Yeah.
I think he's got like his own custom like movements. He looks like more hunched over than a regular player does.
Yeah.
He definitely has some kind of custom stuff he does a little bit later. Like this isn't the end of the story for Jester Thomas. Vague spoilers. And kind of some stuff. I like the idea of him like juggling fireballs in his act.
Yeah.
Like that's why he does that. Like he's a pyromancer and he used it to entertain, and now he uses it to murder.
Yeah.
Well, when life gives you lemons.
Yeah.
when life gives you hands that are always on fire.
Yeah. Life gives you fireballs. Watch out.
Cross promotion. High five. No, that burns. Ow, not high five. Sorry, Jester Thomas. Yeah.
Yeah. So, and it's guarded by two of these Grave Wardens, which can be kind of a tricky fight.
I have no idea why they're here.
Yeah, I don't know either. Yeah. It makes me mad.
Yeah, and just like for this point, they're so resistant to everything that you like.
Yeah.
That for me, like, because I'm playing Hex right now, they're pretty susceptible to that. But everything else just does nothing to them.
Yeah. It's frustrating too because I love them so much where they eventually show up. Like they're very cool there and make tons of sense. Like. This feels super gamey.
Yeah. But they're guarding the pathway to Mytha herself.
Indeed. Which is like an awesome intro to a boss. Like I think she looks very striking, and she always does this magic missile, soul spear attack. When you first run into her, and it makes a scream sound, and it's like very like shock and awe.
Yep.
When you first get in there,
it feels like she's being very tactical about the way she's fighting you in a way that a lot of other enemies don't, specifically because of her grenade attack.
Yeah, which I love.
Yeah, and also how she's like keeping distance with her spear and stuff.
Yeah. She doesn't want to get you up close, and then if you do get up close, she can coil around you.
Yeah.
So the right way to fight this is to take that windmill out, and then there's poison on the edge of the pool, so it's still like kind of a set piece, and she can still be healed by it. If you don't do that though, there's poison, like knee-deep poison in the whole room, and so she's constantly healed, and you're constantly dying in the fight.
Yeah,
which is hard. And the way that I did it was like old Radiant Life Gems, which last for a long time. If you suck up 2 of them, like they will counteract the poison for a good long time. It took me 1,000 tries. I ended up using a lot of old Radiant Life Gems. I went and bought the bigger Life Gems from Melentia, and it took me a lot of tries. But you can beat her without draining the poison. It's just difficult. And it's kind of like I kind of like it because you can't like stop and think about your decisions at all. Like, time is ticking constantly during the whole fight. So like I was like, oh, this is something they haven't really done in Dark Souls, and is really, really tense and hard. And there's a way around it. Like I almost wish that as opposed to the doing the windmill more or less being mandatory, I like the idea of that being like a little bit harder to do, or requiring some kind of sacrifice, or a little bit more hidden. I guess it's very hidden, but now that's common knowledge. It's not. And having that be like a more reward, like you get the easy version of this fight as a reward, kind of like a ceaseless, for knowing this thing, as opposed to, and having the standard, maybe toning it down slightly, but having the standard version be the poison version.
Yeah. And you don't think that ceaseless kind of qualifies as something that is common knowledge, or that very quickly arrived at being common knowledge?
I guess he did.
Yeah.
I don't know. I just wish the balance was a little bit better.
Yeah, I'm picking up what you're putting down. I think that's a great idea, but you're absolutely right.
Yeah. So the ceaseless might not be a good comparison to it, but maybe like Iron Golem. Like Iron Golem, like doing the easy kill on Iron Golem is hard, but it's possible.
Yeah.
You know, like something where it requires a little bit more effort to get the easy version of this fight.
Yeah.
I wonder though, like with like the wiki and all that being as a, you know, sort of omnipresent as it is, like, can we even have something like that these days?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like the way you would get around that is just by making it incredibly difficult to do mechanically. Like the sequence of things would require a great deal of precision. And would we be complaining about that? Like, would this be something that we just like probably know of and saw a video of, but never really, you know, had the tenacity to pursue for ourselves?
Yeah, like the Duke skip or something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and also, I mean, you know, it should be noted like that you could pre-order the strategy guide before the game came out, and like have that. So, like, I mean, this was never actually hidden knowledge, which isn't really the developer's fault. Like, you know, when they made it, it was, but then all these other forces. But it just kind of like the balance is weird. Like, it's either really, really hard if she's poisoned, or really, really easy if she's not, and that gets kind of frustrating.
Yeah, I like the idea of a boss with an effective time limit that you can take various measures to extend. That to me is cool, and it's a gimmick that hasn't really been explored.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Yeah, but Mytha herself, when you engage her, you know, on kind of more fair / less fair terms, more fair for you, less fair for her, you know, like I said before, she's kind of a C+ difficulty. You know, just she can engage you at various, you know, different distances, but she doesn't have a lot of health, and she's not incredibly resistant to a lot of things.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And Jester Thomas will will take things out.
Just make it entirely trivial.
Make burnt snake out of it.
Yeah.
Good eating.
Yep.
So here's a question: can you summon Jester Thomas without taking out the windmill?
I bet you can.
Okay.
I bet you the summon sign still exists. He'll just get poisoned and you'll be poisoned doing it.
Yeah.
But I bet you can. You just have to see the sign.
Yeah,
the sign doesn't glow through the poison or anything, so you just have to find it.
Right.
So I'm surprised you didn't summon. Like, I was thinking, like, oh, you must have summoned to get that last one. Even then, it was hard. Like, oh my god, you're insane.
No, I like at first, like the way that Souls games always work is like the first run through, humanity items are incredibly rare, and then like once I know where they're at and know how to play, like I always end up with like 20 or 30 surplus ones. So I just didn't have them. Like I think I tried a couple times but died, and then ran out of human effigies at a certain point. So
yeah, sounds like this was your Freya.
Yeah, this was ridiculous. You know, this took a lot of tries. I don't know if it was the boss that. Well, it definitely wasn't the boss that took me the most number of tries because Ancient Dragon exists. But it is. It took me a lot of tries.
Yeah.
So
how about you, Jake? Your first go through on this hard?
Very hard. I think I found every boss in this game hard though. Oh jeez, what was the hardest boss I fought though? I'm thinking maybe Mirror Knight. It took me a long time, very long time to fight Mirror Knight.
Yeah,
because I up to that point I'd been using like a lightning infused the Hide Knight sword, right?
Yeah.
And it's like, here's a boss that not only blocks attacks from the bright side, but also blocks lightning damage. Great.
Yeah.
And obviously I'm too stubborn to switch weapons, so.
Well, you learned that one, damn it.
Yeah.
And I wanted to keep Ben Hart alive, and he kept dying, so I had to wear the evil eye ring.
Oh yeah.
Oh
so,
yeah. Yikes.
Yeah, it was pretty much hell. But I did it, so I'm good.
Huh.
I didn't realize this until I was reading up for this episode, but I didn't know that you could take off her tail.
Yeah. It all it really does is take away one of her attacks.
Yep.
Yeah, that's something in Dark Souls too. That is like a theme. Like you can cut off like most of the enemy's tails, but that just takes away an attack.
Yeah.
It's not like Dark Souls where you actually got something for it. Unfortunately.
Yeah. It's disappointing.
Yeah. We've really gone over all of her lore. There's nothing that is especially new or revelatory about her soul item or what you get from it. You just kind of get her knife, which I don't really know what the trick to it is. Does it do poison?
It has a really high poison adjust.
Yeah.
And it attacks really fast.
Yeah.
So it's a very good poison dagger.
Yeah.
Kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
One thing about Mytha I didn't like in her story is like I guess it's supposed to be she, like her malice and that, as well as the poison turned her into the Naga thing. But I think it like could have been more poetic if it was just like her malice changed the water into being poison.
Ooh.
Like
Yeah.
that could almost be, you know, like a nice story, but then they sort of just like, oh no, it was also magic.
Yeah. Well, like what if this was a place where they drew up healing water, right? Like what if that was the you know, the hook for this place, like the, you know, Brightstone was for the
Yeah, like that was
Cove.
my initial sort of thought. But
yeah, and just you know, as you would do, like, you know, Fall of House of Usher, like just she corrupts the entire area around it. You know,
yeah, and supported by that Pharos device.
Yeah,
that eventually spits healing water. Mm-hmm. Yeah, that is a cool idea. It's never quite like, it's kind of weird. Like there's a weird little like A to C logic where you find out that she's using this poison to make herself more beautiful. Like we know that's not what poison does. Also, when we run into her, she's a monster.
Yeah.
So it's like it's just a little like there's a little bit of like you just have to give it some allowances. Like, oh, maybe the poison, you know, in small doses does something like that, or maybe beauty standards are different in this kingdom, or you know, any number of those things. But she's pretty, you know, pretty hideous.
Yeah.
You know, she's missing her head. Like she just has this like stump.
Yeah.
You know, gross spine stump.
And the responses, just as a preview for the appendix, they're like somebody actually draws a historical comparison for this, though.
Yeah, I saw that, which is interesting.
Yep.
Yeah. I don't know if it's an intentional reference. Like it's a cool thing to underline.
Yep.
I don't know if that was the idea behind it.
Yeah.
But yeah, it all in all, like I think I like this boss. I like this area a lot. Mm-hmm. I don't have all the questions. I wish the Grave Wardens weren't there.
Right.
But yeah. It's cool. It's visually striking. Like all the areas look really cool. Like the clockwork machinery of inside Earthen Peak looks cool. The windmill vistas look really cool.
Yeah.
The valleys look cool.
And it's weird because, like, you know, if you're looking at the predominant color palettes, it's pretty much just gray, green, and brown, which is not new for the series, but somehow they managed to mix the shades and tones in a way that makes it look kind of distinct from other places. I don't know if that's just because it's well lit, or you know, just by the fact that it is kind of this industrial area. Like it does combine into something that feels thematically a thing of its own.
Yeah, like compared to Blighttown, which is very similar to, you know, Valley of Defilement is the you know, poison area. This one has its own sort of style going for it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And even comparing it, you know, the Black Gulch is, you know, neon. It might as well be a dance club.
Right. It's the Crypt of the Necrodancer down there.
I need to buy
also
that.
Like I remember it's great. I remember when I first came in here too and saw the title card and saw what it was. Like I didn't necessarily think that they were harvesting poison because that was crazy. And I just had this overwhelming like sense of just like, oh, this is like where, you know, they were finding food for this kingdom. Like I saw the mill and thought it was a mill, like a grain mill. And it was just like, I had a real sense of like, oh, something terrible happened here, which is always true in Dark Souls. But like the name Harvest Valley as kind of like a positive evocation, like contrasting with the desolation before me, like just was really effective.
Yeah.
When I first ran into it, I remember having like, not like, you know, I cried like when Earth died. Like it wasn't like a you know, emotional. I didn't get legit sad, but I remember just being like, oh man, this is, you know, this is intense.
The timing on that reveal feels very intentional to me. Like when it pretty much goes boom, Harvest Valley. So it's sound, text, Harvest Valley. Okay, here's a new area. You see the windmill. Okay, pretty cool. Windmills. The Dutch countryside, rolling hills,
the sound of music,
and then you crest that hill and you just see that desolation. It's like a micro expression. It's just like this one very small bait and switch that they pull that kind of just like leaves you with this acrid taste in the back of your mouth. Like it's irony and area names.
Yeah.
Mm.
The hills are alive with the sound of mannequins,
with the sound of screaming.
Yeah.
Yeah. I love how this kind of supports the thesis that I kind of arrived at with the Rotten, and then it was underlined with Seldora. And even here, you know, a lot of what we're seeing, and this is carried out even into the end game, is like people who were corrupted by wanting something very badly that they couldn't have.
Yeah.
You know, and just what kind of impact can that have on them and then their environment as a result of that.
Yeah, and on you,
Oh, yeah.
like as we'll discuss in the end game. So like that there's an implication there, based on where you ultimately end up.
Mm-hmm.
So like want is definitely a huge theme.
Yeah.
In this game.
It took my second playthrough to really have that underlined, and I think that there are certain pieces of the macro story that are drawing together for me around that theme. It doesn't just sound like some kind of metal name that they are ascribing to different things of this. It actually does feel like it's supported in different places that I didn't see on my first go.
Yeah, agreed.
Yeah, no, I'm starting to see that now, actually.
Yeah,
excellent.
And it's interesting too. Like one of the things I like about having the multiple. I mean, we've already talked about this a little bit, but like the multiple kingdoms approach. And you brought this up earlier, Kole, when you were saying how it was smaller stories. Is that like each of these kingdoms has kind of their own little gimmick to it and their own little tragic downfall, which is refreshing and kind of just interesting. Like there's having it compartmentalized in that way. Is like more chances to kind of put things together. They don't have to, like you did look at like Dark Souls 1, which you have something like Blighttown that has its own tragic story, but then you look at something like The Depths or like the Duke's Archives, which it's like it just plays into the main story or is just set dressing.
Yeah,
like there is a sense that each one of these spokes is definitely a kingdom that has its own history, that is its own little story.
Yeah,
which is pretty cool.
Yeah.
Like the different kind of terminuses in Dark Souls 1, they spoke to corruption, but in kind of in a more elemental form than what we're seeing here. And I think that's cool and aesthetically pleasing, but it's not like narratively textured at all.
Yeah. And there's some crossover too. Like,
oh, for sure.
Before anybody who's writing in is just like, well, what about New Londo? Like, New Londo is a story of a cool kingdom that has its own little thing that happened and stuff. But it just feels like weighted a little bit differently. Like they obviously have a lot in common with each other, but yeah, I think that's probably Earthen Peak and Harvest Alley.
I think it is.
Yeah, we approve. What are we covering next time, Kole?
Well, next time, I forgot to put this in the notes, but I do know that we are going into the Iron Keep to go after the old Iron King himself. Old Ironside, as we called him. Yeah.
And making a side little jaunt to Belfry Soul.
Ah, yes.
I mean, how long can we talk about Belfry Soul? 5 minutes? That's my guess.
Okay, let's start a pool over under.
Yeah.
I really wonder how he managed to rule the kingdom of Belfry Soul, considering it's a tiny area just above someone else's kingdom.
It's like the Vatican.
Or it's like he's seceded from the Union. Like he's just a part of Michigan that's its own sovereign country. He's a militia member. And for that episode, we're gonna be joined by Bob Mackey, Retronauts, past guest, future guest, always guest.
Yeah.
Our friend and yours. So excited about that.
Yeah. Very cool. Jake, where can people find you?
You can find me on YouTube under Video Game Talking Head, or I have a Twitter with the most ghetto handle imaginable, so I'm not even going to try and pronounce it. But that can be found on my YouTube page as well.
We'll put a link in the show notes as well.
Mm-hmm. Excellent.
Yeah. And recommended. I'm happy that new stuff's coming on the in the pipeline. Yeah. Well, YouTube creators.
It'll be out next time when next time I'm on the show for Bloodborne.
Yeah, excellent. And then we just had to hope From keeps making games so you can make one video every 3 years.
Yeah.
So yeah, thanks again. And we'll definitely Bloodborne and up have you back.
Yeah.
Assuming that
thank you very much for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. What can people do? The preemptive thanks.
Yes.
And preemptive your welcomes. What can people do to support us, Kole?
Well, if you have anything you want to say about Iron Keep or Belfry Soul, we have that contact page. It is Duckfeed.tv/contact, or swing on over to our Facebook page. It's facebook.com/bonfiresidechat to let us know what you think about those areas.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. You can also, as we mentioned at the top of the show, you can support our Patreon campaign. If you go to patreon.com/Duckfeed.tv, kick us a few bucks a month. Definitely appreciated. Every little bit helps, and you get cool rewards for doing so.
I'm sitting in a room. On the bed behind me, I've got an audio rack and a new preamp that I'm going to be installing right after we record. So those are the fruits of your guys' generosity that are going to improve the audio quality of these shows.
Yeah, and you probably even heard the last few episodes that we've recorded of this and Watch Out for Fireballs have had use the new audio interface.
Yeah.
And it does sound a lot better. So we're not just taking this money and, sinking it into, our children's college funds or anything like that. We're actually using it to make the shows better.
Right.
So.
And eventually they'll have like an entire like radio building where they'll actually invite out every guest.
I mean,
so get working on that, guys, because I really want a vacation.
Yeah.
You're speaking to my dreams of a dedicated studio space.
Or man, a dedicated radio station.
Yeah.
Like WDCK.
Mm-hmm.
And then just have like 24 hours. Like we have like, days and days of content between these two shows.
Like it'd be an investment. We'd have to like buy some kind of server that would run it, but that would be trivially easy to set up. Actually.
Yeah, like a random like radio station. That'd be fun.
Yeah.
Maybe an eventual stretch goal.
Let us know if you want that.
Yeah, you probably don't. Yeah. That's not how podcasts work. But just the idea of having a radio station is kind of funny to me.
Yeah.
You can also go on iTunes and leave us a rating and review. It's been a little while since we have those, and those help.
They do.
Whatever the iTunes algorithm is, it helps more people learn about the show.
Mm-hmm.
And that's appreciated.
For sure. I think that's just about it, other than other shows on the network and stuff that we generally always talk about.
Yeah, things to read, things to listen to.
All those at Duckfeed.tv.
Yep. And yeah, I think that's it for us. So until next time, what can they watch out for?
Well, I know that they can seek misery.
Oh, sure.
Yeah.
Indeed. I don't think good no more.
So lest this land swallow you whole.
Yes, lest this land be torn, so the world might be sundered. So.
Baby.
Octung baby.
And we all pray that we will have far more soon.
So since I've been listening back to Abject Sufferings, I listened to the exact moment when we decided that Praise the Sun would be our universal sign-off.
Oh, yeah. Well, Abject Suffering just gets whatever one we happen to be thinking about.
Yeah.
Because that never got a sign-off. So...